Hello everyone, welcome to today's show. My name is Spencer Walsh. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We are live on this Monday morning. Thank you so much for joining us. On today's show, the legacy of President George H.W. Bush. The war crimes, the racism, the obstruction of justice. In other words, the part that people aren't talking about. Yes, there's going to be no hagiographies on today's show. You can get that pretty much everywhere else, so don't be complaining. The House Democrats' first bill in 2019 will be addressing voting rights, ethics, and big money. There are allegations that Republican candidates may have literally stolen ballots out of the hands of elderly black voters posing as officials, voting officials. Crazy stuff. Good news. Senate Democrats are lining up to cave again on DACA. GOP lawmakers are making a power grab in Wisconsin. Trump is wandering off the stage during a photo shoot with the Argentinian president. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is now attacking a congressman. The other way around. This is coming for Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez in this bizarre interview. Again, we got a jam-packed show today, but we're going to start at the top with George H.W. Bush, our former president, our 41st president, who just passed away over the weekend at the age of 94, and has really been pouring in from all tributes have been pouring in from all sides of the political spectrum. And I think really what is the reason why I want to kind of do a little bit more of a negative outlook on today's show is, again, I'm not trying to bury on the legacy of a dead person, but I mean, I have just been observing some of the media coverage over the weekend, and the fact is none of any of his downsides have been talked about. If you think, again, it's literally, there's some real hagiographies being put out there for George H.W. Bush. Saying he was a man of his highest character, his eldest son and fellow former President George W. Bush said. He loved America and served with class and integrity, tweeted former U.S. Attorney and resistance icon Preet Bharara. According to another former President Barack Obama, Bush's life is a testament to the notion that public service is noble and joyous calling, and he did tremendous good along the journey. Apple boss Tim Cook said that we have lost a great American. So this is just some of the many, many, many tributes that have been pouring in for the dead president. So in the age of Donald Trump, it isn't difficult for hagiographers of the late Bush Sr. to paint him as a great patriot and pragmatist, writes Mehdi Hassan, and I think he's got a very good point there. It just kind of puts everything on a new perspective, and you're looking at things on a different wavelength when you compare him to Donald Trump, because so many people have just gotten their lives totally upturned by Donald Trump, and I think for a large part that was a good thing, because some people really need to have their lives overturned. But again, he's done some really bad damage, and it's not nearly as much as what George H.W. Bush is on, but we're going to talk about some of the worst things. So, yeah, it is true that the former president refused to vote for Trump in 2016, calling him a blowhard, and he eschewed the white nationalist alt-right conspiratorial politics that had come to define the modern Republican Party. He helped end the Cold War without, Obama said, as firing a shot, which is it's a very good thing. Good thing we didn't get blown up. He spent his life serving his country, from the military to Congress to the United Nations to the CIA, to the White House. By all accounts, though, he was a beloved grandfather and great-grandfather to his 7 grandkids and 8 great-grandkids. So, yeah, that is the situation. 17 grandkids. It's quite a family gathering. It's like, I don't know, counting all the parents. I do not know how many people. That would even be. He was a public, not a private figure, and it's important that we really understand the full truth about him. So, he was only one of 44 ever men who served as president of the United States, and we cannot, therefore, follow his actual record and allow his actual record in office to be beautified in such a brazen way. And it is very important. This is one of the things. This is some of the many problems that he has with him and his with his legacy over the years. And some of the things that, sure, he was a great guy. He had some sexual harassment allegations later in life, but there are some things that you do need to remember at him. The name Willie Horton should forever be associated with Bush's 1998 presidential bid. Horton was serving a life sentence for murder in Massachusetts, where Bush's Democratic opponent, Michael Dukakis, was governor. He had fled a weekend furlough program and raped a Maryland woman. A notorious television ad was called Weekend Passes, released by the political action committee with ties to the Bush campaign, made clear to viewers Horton was black and his victim was white. As Bush campaign director Lee Atwater bragged, it's the first time, by the time we're finished, they're going to wonder whether Willie Horton is Dukakis' running mate. So that you get the idea. That is clear, and they wanted to pretty much say this black crime committer is associated with the Democrat. And of course, the Democrat should have attacked better, but still, that is definitely a dirty, dirty campaign trick to play. Kind of takes away of his, he wanted kind of gentle politics. And then what happens with that is you should think Willie Horton. That's the other side of the perspective there. Republican operatives such as Roger Stone, now a close ally of Trump, even thought that the ad had crossed the line. You and George Bush will wear that to the grave. Stone complained at Atwater. It's a racist ad. You're going to regret it. Stone was right about Atwater, who was on his deathbed apologizing for using Horton against Dukakis. But Bush never did. He reaped the benefits. Boy, did he reap the benefits of that racist ad there. And if Roger Stone says it's a racist ad, you are, it's pretty sure it's a racist ad. That pretty much puts it to bed. So I think Roger Stone saying it wraps it up. So yeah, 13 years before George W. Bush lied about weapons of mass destruction to justify his invasion and occupation of Iraq, his father made his own false claim to justify an aerial bombardment of the same country. The first Gulf War was an investigation by journalist Joshua Hall concluded was sold on a mountain of war propaganda. Bush told the American public that Iraq had invaded Kuwait without provocation or warning. What he omitted to mention, though, was that the U.S. ambassador to Iraq, April Glaspie, had given an effective green light to Saddam Hussein, telling him July 1990, we have no opinion on the Arab conflicts like your border disagreement with Kuwait. So that pretty much gets him. That makes things look better for Saddam Hussein. That was one of the things where that was not entirely clear, though. There was very, very sketchy grounds. Then there's obviously the fabrication of intelligence. Bush deployed U.S. troops to the Gulf in August 1990, claiming that he was doing so in order to assist the Saudi Arabian government in defense of the homeland. As Scott Peterson wrote in the Christian Scientist Monitor in 2002, citing top-secret satellite images, Pentagon officials estimated that 250,000 Iraq troops and 1,500 tanks stood on the border, threatening the key U.S. oil supplier, which is interesting, according to top-secret satellite images. So it was really the oil interest there that they were protecting, not the Saudi Arabian government in defense of its homeland. So that's kind of the interesting situation there, just to say the least. Yet when a reporter, Jean Heller of St. Petersburg, acquired her own commercial satellite images of the Saudi border, she found no signs of Iraqi forces, only an empty desert, saying it was a pretty serious fib. The Iraqi buildup was the whole justification for Bush sending troops there, and it just didn't exist. They were just allowed to just head on in. Yeah, there's a pretty serious fib, I would say. He committed some war crimes. There's that. Under Bush Sr., the U.S. dropped a whopping 88,500, sorry, I don't know, I just stopped being able to read there for a second. 88,500 tons. 88,500 tons of bombs on Iraq, and Iraq occupied Kuwait, many of which resulted in some pretty bad civilian casualties. Again, that is a war crime. Sorry about that, but it's true. In February 1991, for example, U.S. airstrike killed an air raid shelter in the Amira neighborhood of Baghdad. It killed at least 408 Iraqi civilians. According to Human Rights Watch, the Pentagon knew the Amira facility had been used as a civil defense shelter during the Iran-Iraq War, and yet had attacked without warning. It was a serious violation of the laws of war, concluded Human Rights Watch. So that's Human Rights Watch actually really calling them out there, which is a pretty big deal with that condemnation. But U.S. bombs also destroyed the essential Iraqi civilian infrastructure, from electricity generating water treatment facilities to food processing plants and flour mills. And that was no accident. So they actually went to things that target civilians. They killed civilians in this Iraqi Gulf War. So some of the targets, especially late in the war, were bombed primarily to create post-war leverage over Iraq, not to influence the course of the conflict itself. Planners say now that their intent was to destroy or damage valuable facilities in Baghdad that they could not repair without foreign assistance. Because of these goals, damaged civilian structures were collateral and unintended, but they were sometimes neater. So the Bush administration deliberately targeted civilian infrastructure for leverage over Saddam Hussein. Like, that's not good. That's very, very bad stuff. And that is something that, like, we really have to take into account when remembering who this guy was. As a Harvard public health team concluded in June 1991, less than 4 months after the end of the war, the destruction of Iraqi infrastructure resulted in the acute malnutrition and epidemic levels of cholera and typhoid, similar to what we're seeing in Yemen. Except the fact that Saudi Arabia didn't do it, we did, and we are responsible for what comes into play here, and it's just that simple. So, yeah, that's the truth about this situation. So, yeah, he refused to cooperate with the special counsel. Sound familiar? The Iran-Contra affair, in which the United States traded missiles for American hostages in Iran and used the proceeds of those arms sales to fund Contra rebels in Nicaragua, did much to undermine the presidency of Ronald Reagan. Yet his vice president's involvement in the controversial affair has garnered far less attention. The criminal investigation of Bush was regrettably incomplete, wrote Special Counsel Lawrence Welsh, who was a former deputy attorney general in the Eisenhower administration, during his final report on the Iran-Contra affair in 1993. Why? Because Bush was fully aware of the Iran arms deal. According to the special counsel, he failed to hand over a diary containing contemporaneous notes related to Iran-Contra. Wonder about what that diary actually said. And refused to be interviewed in the later stages of the investigation. In the final days of his presidency, Bush even issued pardons to 6 defendants of the Iran-Contra affair, including the Defense Secretary Caspar Weinberger, on the eve of Weinberger's trial for perjury and obstruction of justice. The Weinberger, Martin Walsh noted, Walsh pointedly noted, marked the first time a president ever pardoned someone in whose trial he might have been called in as a witness, which is very sketchy. An angry Walsh accused Bush of misconduct in helping to complete the Iran-Contra cover-up. That does sound like, where have we heard that before? Like, that is honestly worse than what I think Trump has ever done, because he's never, like, actually pardoned someone who was directly involved in a crime. Again, yet. So it's a big fat yet on that, because we don't know what he could be up to. We don't know what his thoughts are on this. So, yeah, we have no way of knowing what he's going to do, and his term is only halfway through. So just get ready. So, back home, though, he escalated the racist war on drugs in September 1989 in a televised address to the nation. Bush held up a bag of crack cocaine, which said he had been seized a few days a few days ago in a park across the street from the White House. It could have easily been heroin or PCP. Yet a Washington Post investigation later that month revealed that the federal agents had lured the drug dealer to Lafayette Park so they could make an undercover crack buy in a park better known for its location across Pennsylvania Avenue from the White House than for an illegal drug activity. The dealer did not know where the White House was and even asked agents for directions. Bush cynically used his prop, the bag of crack, to call for a $1.5 billion increase in spending on the drug war. We need more prisons, more jails, more courts, more prosecutors, and it's all about punishing, and especially punishing, wait for it, black people. It's that simple. Like, that's really what he was focused for, and the result, millions of Americans were incarcerated. I mean, Bill Clinton continued that legacy, in all fairness. Hundreds of $1 billion were wasted, hundreds of thousands of humans being allowed to die in the name of AIDS, all in the name of war on drugs that did nothing to reduce drug abuse. Nothing to reduce drug abuse. It's a pretty important situation there. Bush argued, according to Ethan Nadelman, the founder of the Drug Policy